but as we were saying before that disconnection, what was it like for you to see such a different vision of parenting in Norway when you first come there?
I don't have kids, but I have a lot of friends who are having kids, and watching them not be able to take much leave or any leave, or not be able to afford childcare because it's so expensive. And I went to Norway, and one of the things that really struck me as I had a lot of fun there. I went to like daycares and talked to teachers to kids, and it just suddenly struck me one day that it's not that they were somehow more feminist than we are in the States, or they're this really wasn't a question for them of feminism or gender equality. It was a lot about economics. So they decided that around the 1970s they were going to go for full employment. At the time, they didn't have it was a relatively small economy, and so they thought that this was like their way to grow it. And in order to do that, they wanted to bring women into the formal workforce, jobs that were traditionally done by women, that were traditionally unpaid labor, like caregiving. They brought them into the formal workforce and often to the public sector. And they realized, if we're going to do that, someone has to take care of the kids. Like, we can't just assume that everyone's going to work and what's going to happen with the children. And they still wanted people to have children. And so from the 1970s on, you have different iterations of paid leave policies. And right now it's something like an entire year in which, or almost a year, in which both parents can divvy up certain amounts of time to be at home with their newborn for 100% of their salary. And what I really liked about Norway, and that's kind of, I really liked hearing that you were a stay-at-home dad for some time, because the reason I chose Norway, because there are quite a few countries that have like good leave policies. Like you said, we're the only country in the OECD with zero nationwide statutory paid leave. But Norway had this thing, they were the first to do it, called Papa Perm, or daddy quota, which you experience kind of your own daddy quota, in which like mom, or they're progressive, so it's like co-parents really, but mom has to go back to work or to school, and dad has to stay home for, now it's 3 months. And if he doesn't take it, he loses it. And so you have this kind of 3 months that you're gifted at 100% of salary, that's state backed. And if you don't take it, then like, who's going to watch your kid for those 3 months? It's almost like a no-brainer, and very few people don't take it. What's great about that though is it's like, it changes family and workplace dynamics in such an interesting way, where at home it's like dad is no longer assistant to mom. He's like a genuine co-parent in his own right, and is a primary caregiver during that period. And it allows them to bond in a different way to their kids. From everything that I saw, it was really successful in that sense. But then in the workplace, you have this fascinating thing where you have sick leave for your child when they're sick, and you get both parents get the same amount. So if your child is sick, you're just as likely to go home and stay with them if you're mom or dad. And so that changes the kind of employer's dynamic as well, where the discrimination really, people can't really discriminate against women specifically, because men might have the same amount of leave. Men might have the same amount of sick leave with their kid. And it just creates a lot more understanding in broader society about what it's like to be a parent, what it's like to have a family. And it's been really great for their economy. So there was a Norwegian finance minister who said that since the 1970s, like the combination of bringing women into the workforce and also having these family-friendly policies. Oh, the thing I didn't mention is that they also have really great, highly subsidized childcare from age 1 for all children. And no one pays more than around $400 a month per child, regardless of if it's private or public, the daycare.
You said it decreases in your writing. You said it decreases the more children you have, which is quite the opposite of daycare. Again, as you said, you have friends that are having children in the US. uh, your exorbitantly high rent can equal your childcare in the US. I don't know how much childcare is right now in the States, but when I had a kid, we were paying an in-home person like 1,600 a month. And that was like a person that had a house and they weren't going to kill your kid. Like this, like it was some bare minimum shit.
And you're from the Bay Area,
I'm
right?
from the Bay, yeah.
I have some friends out there, and they're paying, I think, double that for kids, so and it's
Jesus.
for a similar setup, like someone's house that they've extended, and they have a few kids in it. No, it's really, really a huge financial burden on families that to cover childcare, and that was one of the things that really struck me in Norway was that I talked to so many women who are just like, my career feels like it hasn't even skipped a beat. I talked to this economist, you probably saw the story in the book, this Italian economist named Eileen. And she has a great story where her husband's from Bergen, but they met in
Mm.
Milan, where she's from. And the way she said it, she was like, my same Norwegian husband in Milan, when he didn't have paid leave, when we didn't have the subsidized childcare, he didn't really have an understanding of what it was like to be a primary caregiver. And then he had his first daddy quota when they moved to Bergen. They have 5 kids. And I think it was their second kid that he stayed home with. And he had all of these big plans to, build all of these like bunk beds and, all of this stuff. And she said she would get home and he would just be like exhausted and say like, it's been a successful day. I've kept the children alive. And I've put 1 load of dishes on. It's just, that kind of you really don't know until you have to do it, I think.
Yes. No, look, my outlook on a lot of things changed when I had to stay at home with a small newborn to toddler, um, because you have to keep them entertained at a certain age, and it's not just throw a screen in front of them. It's like, we gotta do something, kid, and and you can't just go. There's a park, run around, right? So you have to do the running around too. Clean them up, wash clothes. Washing is the endless. It's just an endless sea of laundry. I don't know what it is with little people. It's just an endless sea of laundry. But yes, I cherish that time, and I kind of miss it. Just I don't kind of miss it um, quite a bit. If someone said, "Okay, you have to be a stay at home dad, and you can't do your show anymore," I would say adieu and just help people with homework and carpool everywhere and be soccer dad of the year. Much rather do that.
Well,
But what'd you
okay.
say?
Oh, I just that,
Okay.
like, that's such a great experience, but beyond that, one of the things I was gonna say is also and I started to say was about the economic benefits of that, is that so the Norwegian minister I started to talk about, he says that the GDP per capita grew by 20% because of women in the workforce and because of these family-friendly policies. So there are like these huge economic benefits that we're missing out on as well because we're not supporting families. And leave policies are really popular in the States. So not only do 94% of Americans polled think that it would be good for families to have paid parental leave, but you have a really interesting thing that happened in the general election where I think it was like Mississippi, Nebraska, and Alaska, which we would consider these deep red states. They all passed paid sick leave, not parental leave, but paid leave in on the state ballots, and they did it with huge majorities. I mean, in Nebraska it was like 74%. So I think there's something shifting there. I think people are realizing like, hey, maybe this is something that I should expect from my government.
Do we still see childcare through a certain patriarchal lens in this country that is rather sexist, where it's just easy women's work, and there's some woman that'll do it if I have to pay them or if they're in my house? Has that mentality not really worn off on us as far as that free labor?
I would hope that things have moved forward, and I know that we have a lot of room to grow in the States, but, it's 2025. I I really hope that there are very few people who think that anymore.